Okay, so hello everyone. It really is a pleasure to welcome you to our webinar today. Especially I reach out to our licence holders from Australia and New Zealand. We've been working in partnership with our friends in the US to help transition former licensing online and word of life customers to one licence. And all in all, this has been a smooth process. But as with any change, there's a learning curve for all of us. So this webinar is to support you. It will offer a tour of the One Licence website, and hopefully you'll be able to gain some confidence in using the website really well. Specific questions about the group accounts and group manager responsibilities, etc., those that are managing those annual accounts for churches and schools, we'll be providing more information down the track for you. So in the interim, Shanae and I, my colleague who is assisting with the whole One Licence service in Australia and New Zealand, will be able to help you with any of those questions regarding your groups. And if you need any assistance, feel free to contact us. So I'll now hand over to our General Manager and our knowledgeable leader, Brenna Cronin, and she'll demonstrate the key functions of One Licence.
Very good. Thank you, Monica, and hello, Shanae. Greetings and good evening from across the globe. I'm saying hello to you from Chicago this evening, where the One Licence office is based out of. We also have some representatives that we work with in Portland, Oregon, so on the west coast of the US. And then we have our office in Australia with Shanae and Monica. So we really are a worldwide company, which is incredibly exciting and allows us to have these webinars. So whether we're saying good morning or good afternoon to all of you, hello, and we're glad that you're here. So this webinar is going to be pretty straightforward, basic functionality, understanding of the website. We will talk a bit about accounts, and the different license styles and reporting and downloading and things like that. But before we get to all of that, I want to give you an understanding of how our time together is going to roll. So we'll be together for about 45 minutes this afternoon, this evening, I should just say today. We'll be together for about 45 minutes or so today. The Q&A process is really going to depend on what that timing looks like. So because we do not have Q&A functionality inside of the actual Zoom platform, which is you're all taking the webinar on that right now, any questions that you have, please do email those to us at info.au, so info at onelicence.net. So that's how you folks are used to emailing us. So send us an email, info.au at onelicence.net. And what you can do is put webinar in the subject line, and then we'll be able to know, because there are all kinds of other customers that are emailing us right now that are not on the webinar. So please specify that it's for the webinar. Again, this is just for those that are watching live. And then we'll be able to answer the questions either in the moment or at the end. So I want to introduce everyone to Shanae before we go any further. Shanae, is there anything that you want to say about the Q&A process?
Yeah, so basically, if you want to flick your emails through, I'll read them as the webinar is going on. If there is a fitting time for me to interject and to ask the question, I will. Most of the time, Brenna is amazing. She will answer your questions before I can even get them out to her. So patience is definitely the key in this. But please feel free, anything that you find might need to be explained a little bit further in depth, just pop an email through and I shall present it.
Great, thank you, Shanae. Please also note, customers, that specific questions will get a specific answer. So if your questions are either too specific to your account or they require just a longer, more written response, we will follow up with you via email in the next day or so. But if they're general questions, we're happy to answer them here on the webinar. And again, Shanae is going to be monitoring those. Some of you have joined us just since the beginning, so I want to mention again, some of you have the responsibility, or you wear the hat as a group manager or a group account holder, and there's going to be information forthcoming in the coming weeks and months about those processes specifically. So again, we're looking at a general overview of the website today. So I'd like to give you a tour of the exterior of the website at the present moment. So when I log in here, it knows my region. So yours would look a little bit differently. It knows your region. One Licence offers copyright reprints of congregational music. And you may have seen us write in our emails that One Licence offers copyright reprints of congregational music only. And it's really important that our license holders understand that concept. So music for choirs, cantors, Instrumentalists, accompanists, folks like that are expressly not covered under this license. So you see this image of this worship aid to the right here. You're welcome to use our service for projections, for worship aids, for leaflets, orders of service, bulletins. You know, they all kind of have the same kind of synonyms to them. It doesn't matter to us how you're reprinting the words and music or both. What's important is that how you reprint, you then go and report that you've used a copy of that reprint. All right. So One License offers copyright reprints of congregational music. Primarily, first and foremost, we are a reporting service. And then secondarily, we're a downloading service. And that distinction is really important too. So we work with a variety of member publishers. We're over 160 at this point from all over the world. All of them have their titles up on the website for you to report. Some of you know about the manual submission process, and we'll get to that if a title is not available. But not all of these member publishers have downloads, and that's really important. So that could be for a variety of different reasons. More often than not, we find that they're smaller companies and they just don't have the, the bandwidth or the capacity to get their downloads up on our website. We also find that there may be issues with copyright that have to do with, those images can appear inside of a hymnal, but they can't appear digitally. So there could be all kinds of, very, very specific reasons, not even down to the publisher, but down to the specific title itself as to why a download is available or why it isn't. So you're always more than welcome to email us and ask, and we can certainly inquire. But as far as we, One License, the licensing agent, goes, we only have what's on the website is exactly what you can see. So just so there's some transparency about that. I will encourage you, whether you're a license holder with us or not, we have a large level of transparency about the titles that we have, so you can search for them here, and then you'll be able to see whether they exist on the site and whether there are downloads to them as well. So before we go any further, I want us to watch this video here. It's going to give you an understanding of how One License works. One License. Download, create, report. Once you're a subscriber, you'll have access to thousands of downloadable music image files from our catalog of member publishers, and our outstanding database will help you make sure the song or text you're looking for is covered. Creating worship aids, bulletins, and projections has never been easier. Search for your song and download high-resolution music image files, all in one place. By taking advantage of the most up-to-date technology, our website makes it easy to report the titles you use. This ensures authors, composers, and publishers receive fair compensation. Music directors, pastors, and their teams can report song usage 12 weeks in the past and 6 weeks into the future. And our convenient list feature allows you to store frequently used titles for future access, or to download your entire list of songs at the click of a button. One License offers annual, event, and single-use reprint licenses. Annual licenses are the economical choice for those who reprint or project music on a regular basis. Event licenses are great for retreats, conferences, and conventions that are up to 1 week in length. And single-use licenses are perfect for a wedding, funeral, or other one-time event. In addition to congregational reprint licenses, One License offers a podcast streaming license for churches to stay connected to their many members, and a practice track license for music directors to share recordings with choir members and instrumentalists to help them learn their music. The One License customer service team is here to help. Our intelligent ticketing system and phone support ensure that your questions are promptly addressed. Email us at info@onelicense.net or call us at 1-800-663-1501. We believe in the power of music to connect and inspire communities. One License allows congregations to make the most of our member publishers' music, providing access to the finest music for the worshiping assembly. Whether you're using our service on an annual or a one-time basis, we're proud to offer our support. One License, inspiring congregational song. Furthermore, on the How It Works page, you'll see a number of tutorial videos that are available to you. So beyond this webinar, if you'd like to go back and just review, a quick 2 or 3 minute video on specific topics, you can do so here from this How It Works page. I also want to bring your attention to our blog. It's news.onelicense.net. That's the website that you'll visit. So the blog contains all of the information that we publish in our newsletters. So for example, our North American webinar that happened, this post is right here. If you're a brand new license holder, I would encourage you to visit this year in review post. We covered basically the top 10 posts from last year, a lot of them very tutorial in nature. We also gave some statistics for where our license holders are from, the different services and masses reported, etc. So I certainly encourage you to take a larger look at the blog itself. You can also search, for example, one of the questions that we get most often is how to actually process payments and what forms of currency you can send in. So just by searching a word like payment or wire transfer or something like that up in the search, you can pull up a blog post about this. So these are always constantly, being updated and changing as there are, new features that are available and things like that. So even though this was published originally back in July of last year, we do update things if there's new information. So feel free to search on the website. If there's any, if you want to read about the Word of Life acquisition, if that's just something that, you're kind of learning about now, you can do that as well. Again, clicking up in the search bar to find those things. And again, that's news.onelicense.net. And you'll find that when I go back to the home page here, you'll actually see that it live loads everything here on the website. So the second that we post something on the blog, it'll appear right here for you. All right. So just in case you forget news.onelicense.net, you can come back and you can visit this page here. The only things that I scrolled past are just a list of our select member publishers. So those that have a larger presence on our website. Again, we work with over 160. So this is just a small selection of our larger companies here. This gives kind of a three-step process: downloading, creating, and reporting. Even though OneLicense is not an actual desktop publishing software type of program to create your worship aid, we do give you the tools in order to do so. So whether you're used to using Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or Google Docs or whatever the program is that you use, you're welcome to use the image files from our website to create, whatever kind of product you're looking for here. And then the reporting process, it allows you to report 100% of the music that you use from our website. This ensures that artists, publishers, composers, authors, etc., receive those just royalties that they're owed. So it may seem like a task. It may seem like just another thing that you have to do on your to-do list, but I will impress upon you, as knowing these composers and publishers myself, that this is a justice issue. This is directly related to their livelihood. It's incredibly important that you report the things that you use. There's a number of testimonials that are down here if you'd like to read a little bit more. And then at the bottom of the footer, we have some useful links here. So the FAQ page, the About Us page, you can contact us from this page, the video tutorials as well. If you'd like to download a copy of the brochure, this is really helpful. So in case you have a pastor or a liturgy team or someone who could benefit from this information, you're more than welcome to share that with them. I will tell you that it is more directed towards our North American customers, but we can always send information to you as well via info@onelicense.net, that email address. So I'm going to go back up to the top here, and I'm going to work through the actual process of these tabs here, and then we'll go ahead and log in. So we have our list of member publishers that are here. So folks might email us and ask if there's a song that we cover. They might ask us if there's a collection that we cover. Kind of the hard and fast way of thinking about this is if there's a publisher that is a member publisher with us, then their titles are covered, no questions asked. The only caveat to that is that there are some Lutheran liturgical settings from Augsburg Fortress that are not covered, but those customers that use those typically know that. So we feel pretty comfortable saying that if a publisher that you are interested in is a member publisher with OneLicense, then those titles are going to be covered. So if I search for GIA, for example, that's our parent company here in the United States, you'll see that GIA is covered. I know that in your region, if you search for Willow, you'll see some of those other breakdowns that are listed there. We can also search for OCP, and there's the breakdown of the folks that they work with there. So this is a live active searching page. You can certainly scroll in alphabetical order, but you're welcome to type in the names as well. The Taizé catalog, and this actually is just news as of yesterday, so I'm pretty excited to announce it, and you'll see more specifically in our March newsletter. But the Taizé community as a whole, not just as their agent with GIA through North America, but the community themselves in France, they have just released all of their titles to be reportable on our website. So that's pretty exciting news, and you'll be able to see and search for those in the coming days. So we're very, very excited about that.
When searching for publishers, Brenna, are we looking for the publisher of the book, or are we looking for another type of publisher?
That is a great question. Yeah, we're looking for the copyright holder essentially. So with some of these larger companies, the copyright holder and the publisher tend to be the same entity. So to give you an example, if you look at the Hymnal, maybe it's As One Voice, maybe it's Gather, maybe it's another resource. Our service is not Hymnal specific. So it's not book specific. Our service is song specific and publisher specific. So a really good example of that is you might have The Servant Song by Richard Hillert that exists in one of your resources. And at this present moment, that title is not covered through our service. So you might find that it's visible in your book because there was an arrangement with those publishers to get that title into that book, but those titles and those copyrights do not extend to the digital world. So there's kind of a confusing gray area there, but once you kind of have your mind around the concept, it makes a bit more sense. So those permissions, that contract, if you will, was approved for the Hymnal. It was not approved for the digital resource. So it's really important that there's an understanding there. So you may be searching, and I'll show you an example of it later. You might be searching As One Voice number 62, let's say, and it might be there. You might search number 63, it might not be there. And that's intentional because those copyrights don't transfer. Does that answer the question, Shanae?
Yes, thank you.
Of course. If we go over to the options and prices page, you'll see the breakdown. And again, the region is listed here. So all of the pricing information is listed here. So annual licenses, school licenses, single use event, and then practice track licenses. So you can certainly, click on one of the more like informative type of links so you can read about how that specific license works. At the present moment, podcast streaming licenses are not available outside of annual licenses. You are welcome to write us an email specifically and ask permission, and we can work with you more on an individual basis about that. But practice track streaming licenses, as a general rule, are restricted to the annual licenses. This contact page here, and many of you have clicked on this before, you can write us essentially an email from here. If you're logged in, that's even better because then we'll automatically get your contact information that's sent to us, things like your license number, etc. As much information as you can put here in this comment box is going to help us find your account. We really pride ourselves, and I'm speaking on behalf of our entire license holder support agent team. So those are plenty of folks that aren't on this call with us this evening. We really, really pride ourselves on being able to have an answer for you within one email reply. So not necessarily feeling like there has to be a whole lot of conversation back and forth, unless of course that's necessary, and unless of course we need to do that. But the more specific you can be in your question to us when you ask it, the more specific we can be in the question back to you, and then we can move on and help other license holders. So feel free to list as many details that are here as possible, and we would be happy to help you. You can make a payment from the exterior of the website by typing in the ID invoice number. It's a 6-digit number. Likely at this point, it would start with a 2. And then the email address that's associated with the account. So I don't want to confuse anyone here. You need to have the account holder or sub-user or the billing contact's email here for this public pay. So no need to log in. You also may have noticed that billing contacts do not have login privileges. That's intentional. Billing contacts are really folks that, are only on the website once a year. It would be too cumbersome to expect them to, remember login information and things like that. So we have this public invoice pay option on the exterior of the website. And then of course, after logging in, if you're the account owner, you're more than welcome to pay with your credit card online as well. We unfortunately are not able to accept checks from outside of North America. If we go back to this payment page, that kind of lays that out. But we do accept wire transfers, and there's information that's here about that. So we're going to move to the interior of the website here. If you need help resetting your password, you can click on this forgot password link that's right here. It will automatically send you a link to your email. You can also click on this help video. So this is going to bring me to essentially my account page where I can start reporting usage immediately. I want to direct your attention up to this little tab up here where it says My Profile. The month of February, we're doing a contact profile update campaign. So we want all of our license holders to log in, double check their contact information here, and make sure that their users are listed appropriately as well. So from this tab, I can click on my licenses. I can also click on my default settings, so I can change the number of services that I have. The number of services is really interesting. So if this number was 3, it would multiply everything that I report by 3 unless I edited it intentionally. So for those of you that use the same exact music for your Saturday service and your 2 Sunday services, by all means, you're welcome to have it as 3. If your music's kind of all over the place, if you have a contemporary service and a traditional service and nothing's really ever consistent, we encourage you to have that number as 1, and it just means a little bit more reporting for you. You can also click on your default worship resource. Again, this is not required by any means. And I want to make special mention here, we only have hymnals listed if the publisher has provided that data to us. So that's a really high level publisher kind of experience. To have the titles on the website is one thing. To have the titles with downloads is another. And then the titles with downloads linked to a hymnal is really, really high level member publisher experience. So if there's a hymnal that you don't see listed here, you're more than welcome to email us and we can reach out to them. But again, that might come back to that concept we were talking about earlier, where there's only so much that our publishers are able to provide to us from a workflow kind of standpoint. So I'm going to take you back to the report usage page here. And I'll give you just a couple of examples of how we actually search for things. You can search by title. The one that I was specifically looking for was Marty Haugen's. So you'll see that that's number 3. You can search by title and composer, which is the way that I prefer for our customers to search. That's going to bring it up right away. So it's intuitive. It's like a Google search. So what you type in here is exactly what it's going to give you back here. You can also search, I'll give you an example here. Let's try this Gather Comprehensive 496. This might not be your hymnal, but at least it gives you an example. See, that only pulls up one result if you're searching by the hymnal resource. You can also
search via the hymnal and hymn number without typing in the title as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, and it's there for you. It just happened to remain there when I had typed it in. You can also search by publisher, by tune, by meter isn't necessarily always the most popular way of searching, but folks that like to pair their tunes and texts, they can get some help from this page here. You can also search by psalm number. Let me refresh my page here. I see that there are folks that are raising their hands, and just in case you missed this at the beginning, I do want to mention it again. So we're only able to accommodate questions via info.au@onelicense.net by emailing us. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability to answer those questions live in the webinar. So please do send us an email there and we'd be happy to help you. So you can search here by psalm number as well. Obviously, anything that has Psalm 23 is going to come up. So always, regardless, if you don't have your hymnal resource listed here, I recommend searching by title and composer. It's just going to populate all of those results to the top. I do want to make special mention of our Mass settings here. So I want to give you an example here of the Mass of St. Francis. So by clicking on this button in the upper left-hand corner, browse by Mass setting, and the same works for Lutheran liturgical setting, you're able to essentially pull out all of the Masses that exist in the system. So that way they are kind of like just on this specific list for you. So instead of typing in Mass of St. Francis, the system's going to search the words Mass and of and Saint and Francis, right? So if we pull up browse by Mass setting on the upper left-hand corner, it's just going to give us maybe the 12 or 15 titles that are listed here for a Mass setting. So you'd never be using all of the memorial acclamations, but you certainly have them listed here for you so you can look at them, all right? You're more than welcome to click on this green report button here. You can report for the specific week that you're trying to apply it to. The system will let you report 12 weeks in the past and 6 weeks into the future. The reason for that quarterly or 3-month window is because after that, those royalties are paid out to those composers and publishers and authors. If you're behind on your reporting, we encourage you to get your titles in there as soon as possible. Again, it comes back to that justice issue. It's really important to us. But you can essentially kind of backdate all of your titles. So you can input them in for any available week, and then the system will still accept them. I would encourage you, after you've kind of caught up, to stay on top of it. So whether that's weekly or monthly or quarterly or every 6 weeks or whatever your process looks like, it kind of depends on the kind of like the amount of work. If you're only using 1 song per week or 1 song per month, you can certainly spread out your reporting. But if you're using this as your primary worship resource, 6 or 7 songs in a given weekend, you want to be sure that you're staying on top of that. You can adjust the number of services here. It's going to bring you up your automatic default service. You can certainly change it. Perhaps if I was reporting this for a funeral or a wedding or something like that, a one-off, I can adjust that. And then in your region, you need to specify the graphical source. So listing together the source that you pulled it from, because there's a royalty that's paid for that as well. So I can do 2 things. I can either send and view the report, or I can submit and continue the search. If I submit and continue the search, it's just going to bring me back to this Mass setting page that we were on. So I'm going to go to view report. I want you to rest assured that if you see a title here, Mass of St. Francis, Amen by Paul Taylor, I can assure you that that song is reported. So a little bit of humor for you. This blue button in the left-hand corner, it gives you this kind of notification here that your report was saved successfully. If you see the title here, the report is saved successfully. We live in a culture that tells us that we should save. And as we were beta testing our website, we realized that our customers really felt like they needed another button. They needed another confirmation that they've actually saved their report. So I hope there's an element of humor in that for you. If you click Save Report, sure, it's going to tell you that it's saved successfully, but it already saved because it's listed here. All right. If you need to edit it for any reason, you can click on this green pencil icon. It's going to bring you back to the screen that we were just at. If you need to delete the song, you can click on the trash can button. If there were a number of titles that I had here, say I wanted to start creating a supplemental hymnal resource, or I wanted to create a list for weddings or something like that, I could save the report as a list. I can either, select a list that I've already created, or I can come up with a new name for one. So that could be really helpful too. We had a blog post on supplemental hymnals. I would encourage all of you to take a look at that too. Essentially, when you're looking to create a supplemental hymnal, it's kind of like you're creating a songbook. So whether that comes in something that's officially bound, you know, by like a printing service in your area, or if you just put some things together with some folders, you know, from your local office supply store, as long as you're not selling that or distributing it outside of your worshiping community, that's really all that necessarily care about. So there's a really important checklist that's here, kind of like a process for how you should actually go about incorporating something like this. So I would certainly encourage you to take a look at that if that would be helpful for your organization. You may have a hymnal already and you want to take, you know, the top 50 titles or something that your congregation uses most often and put them into a supplemental hymnal. We see that happen very often. So again, you can kind of, you know, access your reports from your list and then apply them that way. So there's some quick reporting tools that are down here. Sinead, do we have any questions on this process?
Sure, I've got a couple. So one of them is, when reporting and choosing the graphic source, what do I do if my hymnal is not listed there?
So let's go back to, let me pull up all our welcome for you. So again, Marty's is the one I'm thinking of. You see where it says none specified here? That would be the best option to click if your resource is not listed here, that there's none specified. You're also more than welcome to send us an email and we can inquire with our IT team about adding an additional source. Obviously, this website is not, you know, locked forever, so edits and updates do happen as new resources come out.
Lovely. And another question here is the supplemental hymnal. Is there a limit to how many titles you can put in a supplementary hymnal?
No, as long again as it's not being commercially, bound or sold or anything like that. No, there's not the limit on the number of titles. We do ask that you put them into that list so that way you have an ease of reporting and finding them. And then as you use them, so say you have 50 titles in your book and you're going to use 3 of them on a Sunday, all you need to report are those 3. So you just need to report the ones that you actually use with your congregation.
Lovely. And there's still a little bit confusion about the difference between the publisher of a hymnal compared to the publisher of a title. For example, when you're looking for whether a song is covered by searching for the publisher, we're still sort of looking for the hymnal publisher.
Sure. So since we have all our welcome pulled up, I'll give you an example. So it says that the tune is copyright 1994 by GIA Publications. So the copyright is held by this entity, GIA Publications. All right. The title exists in Breaking Bread. The title exists, let me see, I think all the rest of these are just GIA resources. But Breaking Bread is one example of a publisher, their OCP, you might happen to have their resources. So even though the copyright holder is GIA, you may find this in an OCP resource, right? So it does not necessarily mean that the title is going to be covered. Of course, in this case, OCP and GIA are absolutely 100% very active, vibrant member publishers of our service. But like I said, example earlier with the servant song, you might find that in your Breaking Bread. You might find that in your Gather Comprehensive. You may find that in your Gather Australia, but the title's not covered because the copyright holder, so in this example, GIA, the copyright holder for the servant song is not a part of our service.
Okay, hopefully that clears it up.
Good. I mean, believe me, when the servant song is a part of our service, you'll hear the celebration cannons.
Oh, it'll be posted on the news page for sure.
It will. It'll be on the nightly news. It'll be everywhere. Yeah. I look forward to that day.
And they're all the questions that I have for this section. So
okay, very good. Thank you. I will bring you back to just maybe like one more way of searching here. Lutheran liturgical settings can be really helpful if you have like a Vespers or an evening service that doesn't require a mass setting. So I did kind of want to comment on those specifically. You'll see that they're broken apart just like the browsing by the mass settings. All right, so that's just another way that you can search there. In terms of the actual downloads themselves, we're seeing a lot of Marty this evening. That was not my intention, but he's a prolific songwriter, so that's just fine. You can click on the preview link to see an intentionally blurry JPEG image of the song that you're looking for. So you can confirm, oh yes, this is the one that I'm looking for. Oh, this looks like it's the right version that I'm looking for. Okay, great. And then you can click on the PDF or the TIFF file to actually download it. So you'll see that it appeared up here in my downloads. You can also download a copy of the TIFF. So to give you an idea of the difference between TIFFs and PDFs, so PDFs have a bit of a margin to them. You work with PDFs probably often through your own email services. PDFs, you would have to crop in order to adjust them. TIFF files, the staff line goes all the way to the edge of the file. So you're able to kind of expand them and shrink them a little bit more. So I would say if you're not comfortable with cropping and things like that, go with the TIFF. I prefer to use the TIFF. It's just a little bit easier. The TIFF file is what the vast majority of our member publishers use. Some of them use GIF files. Some folks pronounce that GIF, but they're essentially the same concept. So the image itself goes all the way to the edges of the page. I'll offer maybe another example here. Let's see. Some of these have audio clips as well, so you can listen. So that could be another way to confirm that that's the title that you're looking for, you know, unless obviously you can match this information that's at the bottom of your specific piece of music. I'll give you an example of our As One Voice Volume 1 here. Again, pulling up your Hymnal resource, it's just going to give you that one option. And you can download the PDF there.
So if the soundbite is there, Brenna, are you able to download that song, or is it just there for listening purposes?
Yeah, it's just there for listening purposes. And we get this question a lot with the practice track license. So folks are actually like coming to our website looking for downloadable MP3s. There are some member publishers that provide that, but that's really, really far and few between. The vast majority of folks that have the practice track license with us are, you know, downloading their own version either from that publisher's website or from iTunes or Amazon or something like that. Or they're just making a copy of a CD that they already have, maybe that they purchased online or they purchased at a convention or something like that. They also have the option with the practice track to make their own copies. So if you'd like to, you know, if you're doing a Shepherd I'll Be to You during Mass, and again, this is where the practice track license actually isn't for the congregation, it's for choirs and cantors and folks like that. You can play out the alto line, so that way the altos can just hear their section, and you can, you know, kind of report a track like that.
And are they self-recording, or are they published recordings on an MP3 CD purchase?
Yeah, MP3, CD, those are all entirely fine. You're welcome to do either.
Lovely. Another question is, the sound bites that are provided that we just listened to previously on One License, is that the full song, or is that just a portion of the song? Or does it come down to the discretion of the publisher? Yeah,
it's absolutely at the discretion of the publisher. So going back to that example, it looks like they've provided us with 30 seconds. So 30 seconds is what we get to listen to that. That's typically what we find. The publishers, you know, might not choose to have the entire thing up for copyright reasons. Again, we're a licensing agency, so we're at the mercy of what our publishers provide to us, and they have their own, you know, copyright reasons for doing so.
Lovely. And do we need to report that usage when it comes to the podcast streaming license?
Yes, absolutely. So if I was to report this title here, I'll go ahead and just keep these default kind of weeks that are here. I'll select unspecified and I'll go to my report. I can then delineate if I'm reprinting this and podcasting it, or just podcasting it, or just reprinting it only. So I have the ability to kind of edit that.
Lovely. And I've noticed that when you chose the number of services that you were using the song for example, 3, what if you're printing booklets for, like, say for instance, a funeral, you print out 20 copies. Do I need to specify how many copies I've printed?
You don't. That's a great question. So the license category that we have you listed in is how essentially you let us know how many copies you've used. So if we're going to my profile on my test account here and we're looking at my license, so I have a category A license, which gives me an average weekly attendance of 1 to 25 people. So there's no reason why you folks need to communicate that to us. The options and prices page also breaks down the categories of the amounts. So the only thing that you have to report is the number of services in which it was used, not the number of people who it was used for.
Lovely. Thanks for that.
Of course. That's the end of my kind of like downloading and searching kind of process here. I want to make sure that we have enough time for Q&A. So Shanae, what other kind of maybe non-related to this subject questions do you have coming up?
In regards to reporting, I'm sure that we're going to touch on some other subjects, which some more questions have come up with in regards to lists and searching by composer. If you were to search by composer, in the search section there is search by composer, will it bring up all of the composer's songs that are available? Can I assume that there will be more songs made available for that composer, they're just not there, or?
Yes, I can assure you that more will come up. So I was thinking of Paul Taylor in this example here. So just searching by Taylor is going to bring up anywhere, again, it's kind of like a Google search in the system where the word Taylor exists. So I stand by at all times coming back to the title plus composer, and then it should populate the result all the way to the top.
Love it.
What I will mention about the manual submission process, so I've searched this All Are Welcome Haugen, and of course my computer keeps auto-correcting this. So as I scroll down, I have my bilingual version here. I have different Marty Haugen songs that come up for me here. If I, as a license holder, have done my due diligence, and I have searched for a title and I have not been able to find it, and I know that the publisher is covered, then and only then can I manually submit a song. Manual submissions are reviewed by our publishers. This can happen weekly for some of them, and for some of them, this only happens twice a year. So it's very important that if you're kind of putting a title in here, you're not asking permission for it. You're letting the publisher know that a title is missing. So this is a few and far between process. It'll auto-populate some of the things that you've already typed in. It requires some fields here. You can put some additional information that's here. But again, kind of a humorous example here, if you don't find the servant song in our system, please don't manually submit it, because as we talked about before, the copyright holder is not a member publisher with us. So the manual submission process is not, letting us know that you've used something that you shouldn't be using, because then, there's nowhere for those royalties to go, and that would be considered a violation and improper use. But the manual song submission would be for something like, oh, I just heard this at our summer convention and it's brand new and the publisher hasn't put it on the website yet. Or I have a specific translation of a title and I'm putting that in. So it's very different. No one should be manually submitting for All Are Welcome. I hope that makes sense.
So once you have sent in a manual song submission, what happens when the publisher responds to it? Will I know if it's added or if it's already there, or if they don't actually cover it?
Yeah, so you can go back and see in the usage report weeks itself, if this happened to be one of those titles as an example, it would tell me that I had a pending title that was here. When it's no longer pending, it'll just appear here. And if it isn't covered, it'll be rejected, and the publisher can choose to either notify you or not notify you. So that's entirely up to them. Typically, our publishers do notify as a form of education.
Okay. And I'm still a bit unsure of why we don't need to report how many copies we've made.
It's because we already know that information based on your average weekly attendance, because that's the category that you pay into.
Okay. And if a song is not under your license, where do we send the use information if we have already used it? And are we able to keep using it?
Yeah, so I highly recommend that you Google search it. So I'm going to type in servant song here, and I'm sure I'm going to find all kinds of lovely videos and things like that. I can search copyright, servant song copyright. I highly recommend, for those of you obviously that have CCLI, you'll see that that's there. I highly recommend this website, hymnary.org. It's kind of like an encyclopedia of titles. So you'll see that the copyright holder for this song is Scripture in Song. So you would go back to our website, you would type in Scripture, and you can see that not even the word Scripture is pulling up any member publishers. So this is an example of a title that's not covered. So allow me to say that again, as of February 28th or March 1st in your region of the world, this song is not covered. Obviously, we hope for one day for it to be, but I encourage you to search the Hymnary website if you have questions. It's again, like an encyclopedia.
And that concludes my questions for the meantime. Resume.
Okay, great. I'm going to take you back to this manage lists section that's here. That would pull up this kind of mass setting that I had already created. So I can certainly report all of the titles that are selected. I can rename this. The download all is really interesting. So the download all doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to just magically have a download appear. If there's not a download available for one of these titles, nothing's going to download for you. So to kind of go back to that kind of downloading process here, I just want to make sure that it's really clear. When we search for a title, you'll see that there's a version, a song called All Are Welcome Here by George Lower with ILP. There's no downloads that were provided here from this company. And again, that's entirely their prerogative. There are downloads for this song, again, entirely their prerogative, right? So it's really important that we're reporting the right versions of songs. And then instead of doing that whole download all thing, because then that it downloads a zip file and it can get a little confusing, just click on the specific songs themselves, and then they will pull up a download for you, as you can see in my upper right-hand corner. So I want to be mindful of how much time we have for other Q&A on the website, and being respectful of your time so you all can enjoy the rest of your days. So Shanae, are there any other questions, or Monica, anything that you can think of that came up?
I'm just having a read through a few at the moment. One of them is in regards to what you've just mentioned with the downloads. As you can see, there are many different formats of downloads. Can you please specify if it will download all the types of formats, or if it will just download the one that we are interested in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you click on the specific file itself, like clicking on PDF here, you'll see in my upper right-hand corner, it gave me, I'm on Safari, so it gave me that little kind of like download notification. It's pulling up, and I unfortunately, it's coming up on a different screen, so I can't show it to you, but it's pulling up the PDF itself. If I was to click on this report button, I'm reporting that I've used that song. And then I try to go and download all available files. It's going to prepare a zip file for me, which is a gigantic file. It's a compressed file, so you can see it's taking time here to download, right? So it's downloading every single version of All Are Welcome that we have up on our website. So you might find that to be really cumbersome. It might be helpful for you because then you can kind of scan through and look at the different versions. But I know for me, I've used All Are Welcome many, many, many times, and I actually already know which version of this I like. It's from Gather 3. So this is the one that I use, and I just have it saved on my desktop. So there's no reason why you have to download something every time you want to use it. You just use our service then for your reporting because you already have the image files.
Lovely. Now, can you please show us how to create a list and how to add titles to a list again, please?
Sure. So I can click on this list button here. I can also click on the list button here. It's just going to bring up the different versions of the list. So I've already created this dedication mass list, so I'll just go ahead and select that one. But I can save and manage my list. It'll open up my list, which is exactly the page that we were just on, manage lists, right? So there's two different ways to get to it. You could select the list that you're looking for, and then you'll see them all here. And since I've reported that twice, I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So you can have a list dedicated just for your wedding resources. You can have a list dedicated, you know, if you do the same music during Holy Week or during Advent each year, you can save a list that says, you know, Holy Week 2018 or something like that as you're preparing for that. If you're a school organization, perhaps you have, you know, those top 10 songs that your kids really like to sing at those school services. So you can prepare a list like that. So you can create a brand new list, absolutely. You just type in the name of the list and then it will come up for you that way. So we can try searching for something like the summons. Go ahead and add it to my list. I'm going to enter the name of a new list. I'm going to save and manage. And then I can pull it up here. I have my dedication mass that we were already working with, and now I have my test list.
And I see there that there's a report all selected button. How does that work?
Sure. So if there were multiple titles that were here, instead of, you know, clicking one and then clicking one and then clicking one and then clicking one, I can essentially report all of the titles that are there. So just in this example, since I only have one title, I'm just reporting the one. I can specify the week that it's for, the number of services that it's for, and then I can go ahead and view my report. And then you'll see that that popped up there for 2 services.
Easy. Now, the next question I have has to do with the word source. So the person is unsure what the word source means, and do we require them to own a hymnal to reproduce, or are they able to reproduce the words from other sources?
You're absolutely allowed to reproduce from other sources. Sometimes you may have an octavo, so that would be like a printed copy of choral music, for example. On the back of that, you'll find a reprint box. There are lots of publishers that do this, so you're more than welcome to copy and paste, you know, that essentially that piece of paper. So then you can put that into a worship aid and Xerox it. That would kind of be the old-fashioned way of doing it. If you aren't necessarily comfortable with downloading things and dragging and dropping them and inserting images and things like that. So One License certainly serves as a way to create these files or these worship aids, etc. And they can really be done any way that you feel comfortable with. So you don't have to download it from our website. You can use a resource that you already have. You don't have to have one of the hymnals that we work with. Perhaps you bought the sheet music off of another website and they included a reprint box. That's just fine too. You're also welcome, I should mention, if a text file is not available, you're welcome to type out the text yourself as well and then report that through our service.
Okay, another question has to do with downloading the reporting usage that you've reported against for the particular week. If we want to keep our own paper copy of what we've used, are we able to download a list of all the titles we've reported?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's certainly feedback that we have heard a lot, especially since we've had your region kind of join our service. It's something that our IT team is working on. It's incredibly complex to build that. So I know that we'll be looking out for that later on this year. But at the present moment, the best way to view your titles is to go to My Account and Report Usage. And then you can see that this is the week I just reported for. So you can see exactly the number of titles that I've reported. Again, folks, this is just a test account that was created. So I hope that there's not a whole lot of red on yours. It's just on mine. You can also duplicate if you are using the same exact music for multiple weeks, like, say you're prepping for Advent here and you're using the same exact song, Advent 1, Advent 2, Advent 3, Advent 4, right? You're certainly welcome to duplicate those titles that way. This really is, it's meant to be an internet-based company. It's meant to have everything visible online, but just like how in a humorous way we have that blue save report button, there are some folks that just feel better having a paper copy. So if there was ever a moment that their superior or their bishop or their principal or someone walked in and said, "Where is your," they could pull out their file. And I really appreciate that. I understand where that sentiment is coming from. So we're working on a way to have those being able to be downloaded. Group managers too, there will be a way eventually for you to be able to kind of keep track and hold accountable the sub-organizations or the child organizations that are underneath you. And again, that information is forthcoming.
And so if we are an organization that doesn't necessarily have services weekly, we will have 0 reported titles for quite a few weeks. Will we get notified about not reporting, and are we able to avoid that?
Yes, you can avoid that by clicking on any of these specific weeks. So say you want to do that for these 3, select action, mark as nothing to report, and apply. And you'll see that these become black. We send out reporting reminders at 2 and 4 months. So if it's been 2 or 4 months since you haven't reported, or since you haven't notified us that you have nothing to report, then we will send you an email reminder at 2 and 4 months. At 6 months, you get added to a list and we follow up with you individually. So I say that again with a bit of humor to encourage you to stay on top of your reports. Again, it comes back really at the end of the day as a justice issue for us and wanting to make sure that these royalties are paid appropriately.
Now, if I have an annual license and I would like to add to my license a streaming license, how would I go about purchasing a streaming license?
Sure, you can do it 2 different ways. You can either email us and we can add it for you, or if you go to my profile and then you go to licenses, if I didn't already have a podcast license, there would be the ability for you to view this. So it says personal additional licenses here. You can go through this process and purchase those. But again, I already have the podcast license, so you aren't able to necessarily view that live. You can also go to the options and prices page and attempt to purchase it that way. You can view your invoice from here as well. The terms and the welcome packet are both incredibly helpful resources. If this is something that you haven't looked at, and it's something that we send in almost every email that goes out, especially if the email is coming from like an informative question kind of standpoint, we send out a copy of the welcome packet. So you can download a copy of that for yourself. The terms and conditions is all of that fine print legalese of what you've essentially signed up for with having a license with us. In case anyone, typically a business manager, a finance manager, folks like that, parish council, would be interested in what the terms of the license actually are.
And will I be notified when my license is up for expiration?
Absolutely. So if there's a billing contact assigned onto your account, you will get an email to them about 45 days in advance or so. So those folks, again, they don't have login privileges. They're just billing contacts. And that's an effort to be green. That's an effort to not, send airmail across the world when something can be paid electronically and emailed electronically, et cetera. So first and foremost, we send it via email. If you do not pay in a certain number of days or weeks, then we do send you a paper copy. If there's no billing contact on your account, then the account owner will just get a copy, so someone will get it. And then as a form of a check and balance here, if I had an unpaid invoice, again, this is a test account, so you don't see that. But if I'm clicking on report usage, you'll have a blue screen that pops up here that says that you have an unpaid invoice. So there's a sense of check and balance that's there of, oh, well, we haven't paid our bill and we didn't realize it was due and it's 6 months overdue. Well, that to us tells us that you haven't reported in 6 months. So then there's that check and balance that's there. So you'll get it 45 days in advance. You're more than welcome to have, that paid right away, so it can be done online. Otherwise, you will get a paper copy. And then subsequent paper copies the months after while you're incurring interest charges. Those are 1% of your total bill, so be mindful of that.
And what if we've received our renewal invoice, however, the attendance category has changed within that year? How do we go about changing our renewal invoice to reflect what our congregation size is now?
Yeah, just send us an email, info.au@onelicense.net. That's a very easy adjustment. It has to be done on our end and not your end, and that's only from a sense of integrity and honesty. We will ask for some type of confirmation. So the average weekly attendance number, we can ask for the registered number of families. We can ask for, if we're concerned, maybe a paper copy from a treasurer or something like that. But typically you let us know what the adjustment number is, we make that adjustment for you, and we send an updated copy of the invoice. And that's, again, just another reason for transparency. It's the same reason why nobody counts money by themselves. So.
Lovely. And final question for today. Now, Morningstar Publishing is the publisher for Catholic Worship Book 2, which is a new hymnal that's come out in Australia. A lot of people are finding it very difficult understanding that Catholic Worship Book 2 is not listed there. Will Morningstar Publishing be registered as a member publisher in the future in order to list Catholic Worship Book 2?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So that requires a couple of different steps. So, and I won't even necessarily speak specifically about this publisher, but if you know of a publisher that you would like to have join our service, you can do two things. You can either email us and we can follow up with them, or you can email them yourselves. There's a sense of that grassroots encouragement effort to get publishers on board with this service. Again, entirely up to them. Once they would become member publishers, once anyone would become a member publisher, first and foremost, they make their titles available. They also can make their titles and their downloads available, and then they also can link to a hymnal. So I want to remind you, the vast majority of the member publishers that we work with do not link their hymnals. It's a very high level. It takes some technological savvy in order for that to happen. So the drop-down resources that you're going to see here, they're from Willow, they're from OCP, they're from GIA, they're from World Library Publications, also here in Chicago. So it takes a bit of effort. You're more than welcome to encourage them. We're always adding new member publishers. Our advisory board is actively involved in that process. So there is a level of transparency about what we cover and what we don't, but we always at all times are growing and expanding what we offer because we want you to have the best experience possible.
Can I just chime in there, Brenna, just in relation to the Catholic Worship Book, because I think this question does come up a lot for people in Australia and New Zealand, and it relates to any hymn book. So what's really important for our license holders to remember is that if the song is available, if you search on the song and it's there, you can use it. It's as simple as that. You don't actually need to, if your hymn book is not listed, you can still use the work. And I think that's a really important distinction, which is quite different from the other programs that some of the people have transitioned from. So you don't have to have your hymn book listed. You do have to make sure the title's listed.
Thank you for clarifying that.
And I assume that links into where choosing the graphic source, you would choose non-specified instead of having to go through the list and finding that your hymnal's not listed there. You just leave that graphic source as non-specified.
Correct. That's right.
Now, one question that I personally have, because I would like to do this to my account, is if I have somebody else in my church who I would like to add as a user because they're another musician and they need to be reporting on behalf of the church, how can I do that to my account? Do I need to email you to add their user, or am I able to add them to the account myself?
Sure, you have a couple of different options there. You're more than welcome to send us an email and we can add them, especially if it's feeling a little tricky and they're having a hard time with resetting their password and things like that. But if you're the group account manager, if you are the group account manager, if you're the account owner, multiple kind of ways to specify that, you will have this user accounts button that's here. So I can add Shanae and I can add Shanae's email, right? And then I can add this user. If I add them as a billing contact, again, they're not going to have login privileges, but they will receive the bill every year. And then we highly recommend that you add the user to the newsletter because, again, we have all of these incredible resources on how to help you through that, okay? So you add the user, and then I can send them a copy of the invitation. And then the invitation has been sent. And essentially what Shanae will now receive in her email is a copy of the password reset. It will tell her that she's been added to an account and she can essentially, come onto the service and use the site. Where it can get tricky is if you have individuals that are moving from accounts, so the emails can't exist more than once in the system. So if you're finding that this is giving you a hard time, go ahead and send us an email and we'd be happy to help you. Commonly, this happens with school organizations where the music director has moved from one school to another, and it can just get a little bit tricky. So again, there's always two answers to every question. You can email us and we're happy to help you, but we do like to make the website as self-sufficient as possible.
Well, they're all of the questions that I have here today. Monica, do you have any more?
I just have one question that does come up from our customers again, and it's in relation to the practice track license. Brenna, this is a new entity for licensing online and word of life customers, and it has been raised a few times. Would you just speak to that in terms of what is possible under the practice track license?
Sure. So I highly encourage you to click on the How It Works button and review the practice track kind of outline. You're also welcome. Yeah, so this listing is right here. You're also welcome to, I say, take a look at our blog maybe in the next couple of months, and we're going to do an in-depth resource on that. So going back to this homepage, we just did one on the podcast streaming license, and we'll be able to lay that out a little bit more. You can also search for the phrase practice track, and then it's going to pull up this article here. This essentially talks about all the changes that we made to the practice track. So a couple of different resources for you to look at after our call here, but the general understanding of the practice track license is that it enables music ministers to create practice CDs or MP3s or Dropbox files or tape recordings if you still happen to work with tapes for their choir, ensemble members, cantors, etc. So with this license, you're able to copy demonstration recordings provided by the member publisher. So this would be like a commercial recording. You're able to copy commercial recordings from someone like iTunes, Amazon, etc. You can also record your own version. So like literally you sitting there at your piano, typing, you know, kind of playing that out for them. You can also burn copies of CDs. So the way that you purchase those, again, is all based on the average weekly attendance of the congregation. It's incredibly important to us from an economical standpoint that those are priced fairly and equitably. The vast majority of our member publishers participate in that, but there are some that don't. So you're going to want to be sure to look for this practice track blue button that's here. Few and far between the ones that don't.
Great. Well, I think that concludes our questions for today.
Okay, very good. Well, I want to thank each and every one of you for being on our call today. I know we went a few minutes over, so thank you so much for that. If you do have questions, or if we did not have a chance to get to your question in our webinar today, we will happily send you an email in the next day or so in response to those. So please do keep those questions coming if you have them. Ultimately, speaking as the general manager, but also speaking as someone who is a music minister, who has an education background, this type of training format is really important to me. This process is important to me. So if there's anything that we can help you with, we are happy to help you. There's a great sense of servant leadership that's in our company. So that's really why we're here. I do want to make mention also, we're going to have a customer survey that's going to be coming out in just a couple of days here. It's going to be announced next week. Please fill out this survey for us. You'll find more information about it in your email boxes, but that will certainly help us improve the process, the experience that you have, the licenses that are offered, etc. So I want you to feel like you know someone here, you know Monica, you know Shanae, you know myself. We're here and happy to help you, and we would love to hear your feedback. Of course, your positive feedback makes our day, but the critical feedback, the constructive feedback, I should say, is always helpful to us as well. So I'll sign off here from Chicago and hand it over to Monica.
Thanks very much, everyone, for your time today. We do hope that the lesson that that Brenna has shared with us will help you navigate this very powerful platform. And once you get the hang of it, we really believe that you'll find it very easy to report your usage. Thank you for your commitment to copyright. Thank you for your commitment to supporting the people that enhance our worship with their gifts and their talents of their music. And God bless you, and thank you for your management of copyright. It means the world to those creators, and it really does make the world of difference to our worship. So thanks for being with us today.